with that. So, on the face of it, some fairly significant changes in the way the NHS is going to operate. Jonathan.
Thanks, Alistair. Now, for an instant reaction to Labour's health plans, let's go live to Robert Hall in Winchester. Robert.
Get up! Well, Jonathan, yes, health is one of those subjects that is perhaps ripe for change and certainly being debated by those enjoying the sunshine outside the cathedral here. It's also a subject that's being debated in wards, in hospitals and health centres throughout this region. During the 18 years since Labour was last in power, Britain's health service has changed dramatically. Winchester's Royal Hampshire County Hospital is a good example of that change. Back in 1863, Florence Nightingale advised its designers. Today, it's an integrated hospital trust, competing for services under Conservative health reforms which empowered health authorities and fund-holding GPs to buy those services for their patients.
Take another deep breath.
More than half Britain's GPs now control their own budgets. But critics say these reforms have led to a two-tier system.
That's very good.
Hospitals are still struggling to cope with long waiting lists and growing demand. On the wards this morning, staff awoke their patients with news that few had expected.
I think change was inevitable and just got to be accepted.
I thought it was great because he's a young man and he's going to carry on, isn't he? Bring things forward in the country.
The only thing we've got in common with Major is that he supports the same team as I do. It's Chelsea, but it's good to see Labour win again. It's great.
Well, this ambulance doesn't contain patients, but it does shelter around the back here a couple of people who've got very firm ideas about where Labour should go from here. Tim Cotton, first of all, you're a local GP, a fund-holding GP, but perhaps not for much longer. Do you like the alternative?
Well, the alternative, we've been told, is locality commissioning. This is going to be where groups of perhaps 4 or 5 general practitioners or managers will look after a body of perhaps 100,000 patients. I think this is good because it's still primary care-led NHS, which the Conservatives started, but I hope that Labour are going to put the resources into primary care that's needed for general practitioners to give up their time and develop more managerial skills.
How have your colleagues been coping? How urgently do they feel change is needed?
Well, it's not how urgently change is needed, it's how urgently change is going to be put upon us. Labour have plans to actually abolish fund holding within 2 years, which is quite a short timescale considering that a lot of practices have got the management structure set up for fund holding now. We may have to fund redundancies. We're not entirely sure about that.
What are your patients saying, Tim?
I think the patients will be happier because there's no doubt there has been some two-tierism with fund holding. The non-fund holding patients weren't getting the same service as the fund holding patients, and with commissioning that will be abolished.
Okay, let's go over to Bob because your members have been waiting for change for a long time. The scenes in London indicate that change is on the way. What's your hit list of things that need doing?
Well, the thing that was on my hit list was swept away last night, I'm pleased to say, and I felt a huge sigh of relief of health workers when Labour went through that magic figure to form a majority. But of course, we're hoping that we don't need a hit list. We're hoping that we're going to have a new kind of dialogue with the government and employers to work for a better health service.
What about, you're talking about turning the clock back?
No, we're talking about what is quite common in Europe, actually. It's called social dialogue, because health workers want a better health service, and they want to work towards achieving that. So we're looking forward to seeing the internal market ended, and we don't want too much reorganisation. Of course, Chris Smith, if he's listening, knows that he's got to deal with non-pay review body staff pay. That's people like ambulance, and we are sure he's going to give them at least what pay review body staff got.
Are they going to be patient? I mean, obviously change takes time.
Well, I think they will be patient because we do know that we've got a government that believes in the health service, and that was a problem for the Tories. Nobody believed they really believed in it, and also a government that we hope is going to value staff. But there is a big question, I think, which is hanging over the health service, whoever won the election, and that is there going to be insufficient money? And there probably will need to be more money put in.
Gentlemen, questions. There'll be more reaction from us later. Jonathan.
Thank you. And Chris Smith was indeed listening to that, and in a moment we'll go over to our panel and Sue Lawley, and the panel will be asking Chris Smith a set of tough questions for him as Labour's health spokesman at the moment. Conceivably Labour's Secretary of State for Health before long, we don't know. But meanwhile, I want to pick up on the West Belfast result and Gerry Adams' victory there. I said that it would cause consternation in the government and in the constitutional parties of Northern Ireland. Mike, your thoughts on this?
Well, indeed it will, because clearly what has happened, and we see, for example, that Gerry Adams' vote is up 13% to 55%. Now, this is obviously the pent-up feelings in the nationalist community in West Belfast and, one suspects, throughout Northern Ireland, saying to themselves, we've always wanted to wait for the change of government if it comes, and then we will press home our demands. And indeed, Mr. Adams is quoted as saying this makes it a compulsion for all those in the establishment in London to restore a proper peace process. He won't, of course, take his seat in the Commons, but they are going to establish a much bigger representation in London.
And it may suggest that Martin McGuinness in Mid-Ulster could squeeze in there in that three-way. Alistair?
It is a result of great symbolic significance. We've been crunching the numbers, and in fact we think that the likelihood is that Martin McGuinness will just fall short in Mid-Ulster, but the Sinn Féin quite consciously fielded three absolutely top-profile candidates. Jerry Kelly, the top negotiator, failed in Belfast North. Jerry Adams was successful in Belfast West, but Martin McGuinness, as I say, we think is not likely to do it. But it is a fascinating mirror image of the politics of Northern Ireland, where the nationalist vote, if it is split, means that it's very, very difficult for someone to get in. But Jerry Adams has been there in West Belfast before, and he's back again. Big symbolism for the nationalist community.
You say the nationalist vote split, but there's no way actually that the SDLP now and Sinn Féin can come together, because the SDLP repudiate Sinn Féin's ambiguity about the use of the gun by the IRA.
No possibility of that kind of political connection, but if you look back at the last time there were elections for the Consultative Commission, Sinn Féin were doing extremely well at the expense of the SDLP.
Absolutely. We'll leave that there and return to it maybe later, but now to pick up on the health debate, Sue Lawley with the ITV 500 panel. Sue?
Well, our panel of voters has heard all the promises from Labour about the National Health Service, but now they want to know if it's going to be delivered. And joining us up on the big screen now is Chris Smith, the new Secretary of State for Health in waiting. Mr. Smith, tell us first of all, when do you expect to have that job confirmed?
This will obviously be a matter for Tony to decide, and as far as I'm aware, he'll be making his decisions over the course of the next 24 hours. I sit and wait in anticipation.
Well, in expectation that you're appointed, I have here sitting next to me your first patient, because you may be aware you met her 10 days ago in Exeter when she was told by Stephen Dorrell that she should change to a GP fund holder because she's in need of a heart bypass operation. But let her put her story and her question now to you. Pet Whitaker.
Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello, Pet.
I do hope you will be the health minister and help me. But you know that 10 days ago, Mr. Dorrell did suggest I change my doctor to a fund-holding doctor, which you're going to abolish now, I hope. How soon are you going to get rid of the inside market and make the list shorter and help us all that need operations quickly?
Mr. Smith.
I remember very well, Pat, the debate we had in Exeter just a couple of weeks ago. And I remember Stephen Dorrell making that comment to you and being quite shocked by the way in which he said it. He was admitting, of course, that what we have at the moment is a two-tier system, that the patients of GP fund holders tend to get treated in advance of the patients of non-fund holders.
So what are you going to do about it?
Completely irrespective of need. Now, we're going to do two things, Sue and Pat. The first is I wrote a letter about a week ago to the Chief Executive of the NHS Executive, and I hope to be meeting him early next week, where I said we will aim to have common waiting lists for hospital treatment by the 1st of October of this year. So the type of GP you have will not be able to buy you advancement. Your date for treatment will depend entirely on the need you have, the medical clinical
hang on.
need.
As we gather, Mrs. Whitaker's need is quite great. How do you respond to that?
Well, October is not too bad because, unfortunately, I have met a lot of people since the ITV 500 debate who have waited over 2 years, and one gentleman has had 2 heart attacks and is still waiting for a bypass.
So you think she should be seen by October, or indeed have her operation by October?
No, what we've said is that we will have common waiting lists by the 1st of October, and that will mean that people will be judged according to the priority of treatment, according to need.
But Mr. Smith, with respect, if she changed to a GP fund holder, as Mr. Dorrell told her to the other day, she can get that operation. Are you saying you're going to slow down everybody to the slowest person rather than speed up everybody to the fastest?
No, what I'm saying is that from the 1st of October we will want to make sure that simply having a GP fund holder won't be able to allow you to leapfrog over other people whose need may be greater than yours. But the second thing we want to do, and this will take a bit longer, is to move away from single practice GP fund holding to locality commissioning, drawing together all the GPs in an area into a locality commissioning group who will order and plan care and treatment for all the patients in an area, so we get away from this two-tier system.
I want to get another question on a different subject. Caroline Defoe, your question, please.
Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello.
I'm a midwife, I work in Exeter. I'd like to ask you, please, would you undertake to pay nurses and midwives in full from central government rather than going through local pay bargaining?
What we have said is that we do want to restore a national system of pay determination. There must obviously be scope for local flexibility for particular incentive schemes or particular needs of a locality. But the norm should be a national system, and we don't want to have a local element and a national element, which is what happens at the moment and causes enormous time and effort to be taken up
but
around.
with respect, Mr. Smith, but will you pay us in full rather than phased as you have been doing?
I'm afraid we've had to say, and we've said this consistently through the election campaign, that we will have to follow the phasing arrangements which were put in place by the previous...
Not next April, Mr. Smith. That stays for now, but what about next April? Will you pay them in full at the next review?
Next April, of course, will depend entirely on what sort of recommendations come forward from the pay review bodies, and we'll need to assess that at the time.
Okay. Chris Smith, thank you very much, and join us and the panel of voters here later on, because we shall be talking to Alan Michael, who is the Home Affairs Minister. We think he probably will be. Jonathan.
Thanks, Sue. The Conservatives in the local council elections have won another seat. They've got one control of Surrey, which was under no overall control. So they've got 3, at least, local council seats, some kind of compensation for them, I suppose. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, life after John Major. Who might the candidates be for a Tory leadership contest? Join us in a few minutes.
Who's the guy like a human mole can ship 10,000 tons of coal?
Can I dig it, mate?
Who digs half a dozen pits after a bowl of Weetabix?
That's our shaft, you know.
Who's 5 pits down, 10 along, straight past Bristol, going strong?
Weetabix. You all right?
Yo.
Once we've started you, there's no stopping you.
Nothing can give you a cool mental lift like Wall's Solero. Exotic fruit puree and creamy vanilla ice cream all in one. Now in the new citrus flavor, Wall's Solero, the mind cooler.
Many of us worry about protecting our skin during the day, but are you doing enough at night? Extensive tests on this light, easily absorbed night cream prove that because it's packed full of replenishing ULA moisturizers, it delivers moisture from the moment you apply, through the night until morning, so you wake with soft, smooth skin ready to face the day. And the name? Double Action Night Cream from Oil of ULA. We can prove you can look younger.
Using spades and forks can be backbreaking. Now tear through your gardening with the Garden Claw. It's all very easy. The Garden Claw has a patented design that virtually eliminates bending and lifting. Turn handles and a steel tines corkscrew into all soils, even clay. It's ideal for working around plants and shrubs. It's perfect for mixing in compost and fertilizer. Also available the Mini Claw for plant box and container gardens. The Garden Claw in the blue and yellow box.
Available at Robert Dyers, Great Mills, Do It All and B&Q.
I've been driving in my car. It's not quite a Jaguar. I bought it in Primrose Hill from a bloke from Brazil.
When you feel good inside, there's nothing you can't do. Delicious Ryvita multigrain.
Welcome back to election 97. The governor of Hong Kong has entered the arena, but only to say that people should not bet on him as the next leader of the Conservative Party. Chris Patten has said that he'd need a seat in the House of Commons, which is self-evident, before he could run to the top post. And my suspicion is that he's actually telling people, look, don't get excited about me. I've got this job to finish and a lot of things to think about after that, so don't start rushing at me now and thinking I'm going to put my hat in the ring. I suspect that's the warning that he's making. Anyway, let's have now a look at where we are with a summary. And here is the majority now stuck steadily at 179 for Labour's mammoth election victory. 650 seats now in, only 9 to go. 330 was the winning post. Labour Party has already got 419, a record number. The Conservatives 163, a record low. Liberal Democrats, the best they've done since the 1920s. And other seats, including the Scottish National Party, on 23, and also the Irish parties and the Welsh parties as well. Here are some key results. Labour have gained Kettering, throwing out the 7th former cabinet minister. Liberal Democrats have gained Brecon and Radnorshire. The Conservatives have held Richmond in Yorkshire, and Belfast West has been gained. It says other there, but that is actually Gerry Adams for Sinn Féin. And who is out? Roger Freeman's out. Michael Portillo is out. Ian Lang is out. 3 cabinet ministers down and out of this parliament. William Walgrave likewise, Michael Forsyth, Malcolm Rifkind. 3 senior figures who are no longer in the Conservative seats of Parliament. Neil Hamilton from Tatton is down, Angela Rumbold out, and Sebastian Coe is out. Now the council elections, which have been running at the same time, the change of control. Liberal Democrats have lost Wiltshire to no overall control, and there are a couple of Conservative gains, but note they are local elections. They've gained Bedfordshire from no overall control, they've gained Bracknell Forest from no overall control, and the Liberal Democrats have won Torbay in the local elections, as they did in the general election. And here are some more. Seats won. Labour has won 409, the Conservatives 252, the Liberal Democrats 143. So with that, Alistair, give us the share of the national vote now, can you?
Yes, I can indeed, Jonathan, because the whole point, when we're talking about how these 659 seats were determined one way or the other, it was, of course, all a function of how you, each and every one of you, voted in each and every one of your constituencies. But all of those individual decisions we can group together and show you now what the national share of the vote was between the main political parties. And there it is. This is how you voted yesterday. 45% of you voted Labour, 31% of you voted Conservative, 17% of you voted for the Liberal Democrats, and 7% of you voted for other parties. How does that compare with the decisions that you took back in 1992? Well, up goes the number of you who voted Labour by 9.2%. Down goes the number of you who voted Conservative by 11.4%, and the Lib Dem share is down also by 1.2%. Now, the other story that lies behind all of this is the journey, the very difficult journey, that Labour have had to go along to get to that position of holding government. So let's take you back a little bit through a small history lesson. And we're going to begin in 1970, when Ted Heath won. And look there at the top, you've got the red and blue lines representing Tory and Labour support, and down there right at the bottom, the yellow, Liberal as it was then, and then becoming Liberal Democrat later on, share of the vote. But as we move down there, you see there's 74, the first election in 74, very close run thing between the Tories and the Labour Party. Labour just getting in. Then there was a second election in 1974. Labour did just enough to form a government. Forget about the Liberal Democrats for the moment, they're way down there. And then moving on to 79, when Mrs. Thatcher came in, as a result of that rise there in the Tory vote, and the big dip begins in Labour's fortunes. Down it goes to that low point in 1983, and then the fight back begins. Michael Foot is out, in comes Neil Kinnock, in comes John Smith after the 1987 election, and then Neil Kinnock fights the 92 election. John Smith comes after him. The Labour vote is still beginning to build and build and build, and then the 97 election, which we've just talked about, up goes Labour, passing through the Tory line. And all through that period, the Tories are stuck around about 35 to 40%. But now, how those roles have been reversed, because if you compare that point with the point right over here, you can see that the Tories are heading for that low point that Labour struck back in 1983. Jonathan.
The lowest point of all today, of course, was for John Major as he had to leave Downing Street. But almost the last thing that he said before he left Buckingham Palace to say, it's all over and I'm no longer going to be Prime Minister, was a little quip. He said, I'm going to have a nice time. I'm going to go off this afternoon with Norma and we're going to the Oval to watch a cricket match. And I think we can have a look at what he saw when he got there. There he is. He's up there, I guess, in the members' enclosure. Yes, certainly in the members' enclosure. It's a Surrey match. He is a Surrey supporter. I suspect people are smiling at him. Not a huge crowd below there. It's one of those Surrey weekdays, I guess. There he's going inside for a well-earned, peaceful afternoon. Now, as we've heard, as I was saying just then, John Major standing down as leader of the Conservative Party as well. And first out of the blocks in the race to replace him was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kenneth Clarke. The question now is how bitter and difficult is the battle for the succession to be? Of course, some of the main contenders are no longer contenders because they're no longer MPs. Michael Portillo, example, would have been among the favourites, but he's out. So is the former President of the Board of Trade, Ian Lang, and the former Defence Secretary, Malcolm Rifkind, all really serious runners. So, of those left, who are the most likely to go for it? Michael Howard, the former Home Secretary, will lead the campaign from the right of the party. But though his ambition is great, his power base in the party is still small. From the centre-left of the party, the former Health Secretary, Stephen Dorrell, is likely to run. Although he did make a few slip-ups over Europe and devolution during the election campaign, some see him as the kind of figure capable of giving Tony Blair as good as he gets. And here is the heavyweight of the centre-left, Ken Clarke, who said he's going to run. Regarded as a good economic chancellor, he's the champion, too, of the Europhiles, but anathema to the Eurosceptics, which may be a handicap for him. And here, of course, is Michael Heseltine, by no means written off. There he is in splendid form. He's hungry for power still. He remains a great campaigner and could pull support from both wings of the party. John Redwood has been notably silent so far, the arch-sceptic on Europe, who challenged John Major in '95 and will take on all comers, you can be certain, in '97. So there we have the potential runners. Mike Brunson, first of all, they are going to come out pretty quickly now. We heard, for instance, Mr. Hague saying that he's going to walk his dog this weekend, which is the sore sign of someone who's saying to himself, shall I run? Probably saying yes and finding the way in which to say it.
Well, it is going to be a crowded field. I rather gather that, for instance, this weekend's television programmes may be the start, perhaps, the unofficial start of some of these people making their pitch for the leadership. But you see quite a crowded field. Just run through it again. Clarke, Heseltine, Dorrell, Hague, Redwood, Michael Howard. You have to think possibly about Peter Lilly. You have to think about Gillian Shepherd as a possible compromise candidate. So a lot of names in the first ballot, and of course then it will narrow down almost certainly in the second ballot.
Thought on that, Alistair?
Well, there's been a lot of talk for several months now about William Hague as being the only one who is the possible compromise candidate, and some people have been pushing his fortunes. Others within the party say next time, perhaps. But it's interesting when you reflect on what you just said, when you were running through the field of runners and riders, they all still represent the extremes of the party. And until the party sorts out what it really believes as its core values, they've got a problem.
David Butler, you've watched quite a lot of these political battles for power. What do you make of the upcoming one?
Well, firstly, you said that Chris Patten couldn't be in it because he couldn't be in Parliament. But, of course, it's worth remembering that Alec Douglas-Home became the leader of the Conservative Party and the Prime Minister when he was in the House of Lords and he had to wait for a by-election. You can get people in by... But I don't think...
There's no chance today, David, that someone would think they can get into the House of Lords and be Prime Minister,
No, he doesn't. He got out of the House of Lords. The point is that Chris Patten could be elected if they want him, but he was saying, I don't think I'd have a chance. I don't think he would have a chance, so I accept in putting him out. I think Kenneth Clarke would not, in the current climate of the party, be very likely to get put on a good show. But there's a basic thing about all these people. Under the Conservative rules, you have to be nominated by 10% of the parliamentary party. Now, it's been put to me that quite a lot of the members of the parliamentary party wouldn't want to stick their necks out by actually nailing their colours to any particular candidate's thing. So you would only quite like to have 50% of people who'd want to sign nomination papers, which means probably you would only have about 4 candidates. Some of these people might like to stand, but they actually wouldn't get enough people to nominate them.
That's an interesting thought. Quite difficult to get the 10%, particularly if there are only going to be, 166 Conservatives in the House of Commons, and if you've got 6 or 7 runners, there's not an awful lot of people there to get you nominated. Now to another panel discussion debate with Sue Lawley on law and order. Sue?
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. That was Labour's one of their big slogans during this campaign. And, of course, law and order is an issue that is vitally important to the ITV 500. Joining us on the big screen now, we have Alan Michael, who is Labour's new Home Affairs Minister in waiting. Good afternoon, Mr. Michael.
Good afternoon.
And we've got lots of questions for you here, so let me ask for the first one, and that's from Pauline Hayward. Mrs. Hayward.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hello.
I'm very worried about youth crime, and you have a proposed curfew for under 10-year-olds for 10 o'clock at night. I think that that's too late.
Well, let me explain. The whole point of the idea of a curfew is that it would be a part of a whole range of other ways of trying to pull things back. You have to look at the whole issue of youth justice, youth crime. For far too long, youngsters have got the idea that nothing very much will happen if they commit offences. There will be repeat cautioning, and we need to turn that around. They need to know that if they offend, they will be caught and punished. We need to replace repeat cautioning with a final warning so that they know if they ignore that final warning, they will be punished. And you also need to deal, as Sue just said, with being tough on crime and tough on the causes by providing jobs and opportunity to those teenagers who are causing so many problems in so many areas.
I do agree with that, but I think it starts at a younger age, and I think if teachers had more power to punish in schools and parents had instilled more respect. Not necessarily the cane, but I think that teachers should have more rights to punish in other ways.
There's a lot of nodding going on here to that, Mr. Michael. What's your reaction?
Yeah, well, the trouble is that we need to deal comprehensively with all these issues. You've heard Tony Blair, during the campaign, reinforce today, saying the issue is education, education, education. We've said that we need to tackle things as early as the nursery education stage within the 5 promises that Labour has made. But we also need, in the older age group, the teenagers who nowadays seem to be continuing to offend into their 20s instead of growing out of it. We need to get a message to them as well. Right. There's a great deal of work to be done on a whole range of these issues.
Right, here's another one. Andrea Hewitt, your question.
Mr. Michael, everyone seems to want to see more police officers on the beat to reduce the fear of particularly violent crime and to produce the juvenile curfew that you've just discussed. As a retired police officer, I know that the police have been doing this for years now through civilianisation. So why were you the only party who haven't promised the additional recruitment necessary to really give people a true feel-good factor?
Well, we're not going to promise what we can't deliver. And the fact of the matter is that the Conservatives at the last election promised an increase and delivered a cut. Now, at the moment, there are an enormous amount of resources wasted because not many crimes lead to convictions and punishment. The fact is that only 1 crime in 54 ends up with a punishment by a court. We need to make sure that available resources are used properly, that the criminal justice system backs the police, that sentences are appropriate, and that particularly with young offenders, instead of the police spending an enormous amount of time with unproductive processing of cases, that things happen immediately to nip things in the bud, to stop offenders continuing in their pattern of behaviour.
But, Mr. Michael, let me give you a statistic that concentrates the mind. This is from the Audit Commission. For every single police officer on patrol, there are 18,000 people, 77 miles of road, 7,500 houses, 9 schools and 23 pubs. Surely your priority should be to put more police officers on the beat and out there in panda cars.
Let me give you 2 statistics. Since the general election of 1979, crime doubled, violent crime trebled. The police are dealing with that vast mountain of crime, much of which is preventable, particularly if we turn off the tap. If you like, it's like having a bath. where the plug is in, the tap turned full on, because the wrong things have been done over recent years, and things are not being done to nip things in the bud with young offenders who therefore carrying on offending. They're a problem to the police, they're a problem to the community. We need to tackle these problems comprehensively. And just simply adding a few additional police officers would not solve the real basic problems.
Alan, Michael, thank you very much indeed. Jonathan.
Thank you.
Sue, thanks. Isn't it interesting? You begin to see the opposition spokesman sounding like the government already, being tested by Sue and by the public. Just one piece of news. The CBI is on board for Labour, so far as one can see. They've welcomed Labour's commitments on inflation, personal tax and departmental spending levels, as well as on education plans and its determination to complete the European single market. So that's something of a thumbs up. And incidentally, we'll be speaking to the Director General of the CBI, Adair Turner, very soon, indeed after the break. After the break, we'll be looking at one of the big stories of last night, how it was that Martin Bell won his battle to oust Neil Hamilton. Join us in a few minutes.
We're at DFS.
Let's see what people think.
What do you think of 5 years free credit?
It's great.
Fantastic.
And it's on everything.
Did you know anything you choose is free for the first 12 months?
The first 12 months, that's great.
It's absolutely free. Not even a deposit.
And what do you think of the price?
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's very good.
It's real leather, too.
And that's even better.
That's DFS.
This bank holiday time.
At Sidcup, New Malden, Croydon, Milton Keynes, Reading and South Ruislip.
Great value for money.
For legs that stay smooth for weeks rather than days, use Imac Warm Wax. Now available in a convenient new bottle with an applicator.
When you feel good inside, there's nothing you can't do. Delicious Rivita multigrain.
Sarah Thomas has discovered a foundation that covers like a liquid, but comes in a powder. Simply Powder Foundation, new from CoverGirl.
Okay, you're gonna love this guy. Runs like clockwork. Time? 0620. He's finishing breakfast, and right now he's heading for the shower.
0621, he's in the shower. 20 Celsius, 53 seconds. 0622, he brushes his teeth. 20 strokes.
Is it the crispy golden flakiness, the lightly sweetened honeyness, or the flaky hint of nuttiness that makes Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes so irresistible?
0625, he's at the door. You can set your watch by him.
Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. The trouble is, they taste too good.
Well, security and protection are the main things. Plus, you're in a hot club. You want to feel dry and comfortable, and you don't want to have anything else in your mind. You want to be out having a good time. So I gave Always a go, and it worked amazingly. It really was a surprise.
Look, it's amazing how much these 3mm can absorb. The secret, the dry weave top sheet, and the ultra-absorbent core, which work together to lock away the liquid. The result? The pad stays fresh and dry. Proof that you are really protected.
And with Always, I am secure, I am protected, and I am comfortable, so that it covers every aspect.
Relax, you're ultra protected.
Take time out to discover new Viva Color, Weller's first permanent color with a color vitalizer. It uses ingredients found naturally in hair itself to vitalize your hair. The result? Lasting radiant color and brilliant shine. Put the life back into your hair. Add vitality to your life. Discover the secret with Viva Color, new from Weller.
Put together all the interest earned by Woolwich savers over the years, and you could buy a field full of sunflowers. But add in all the money earned by Woolwich Peps, unit trusts, and a variety of bonds, and you could have a room full of smiles, and still afford to have the ceiling painted. Billions of pounds for millions of people.
Scusi, signorina, are you with the tour party?
No, I'm with the Woolwich.
Get much more with the Woolwich.
Welcome back to election 97. Gerry Adams, we were saying, has won the seat in West Belfast for Sinn Féin, and he said that he will certainly go to Westminster but won't take an oath of allegiance to the Queen. And I've just heard too that Martin McGuinness has won in Mid-Ulster. That means there are now two Sinn Féiners, the two leaders of Sinn Féin, who have won their seats. Now, Gerry Adams said that he won't take an oath of allegiance to the Queen, but he will go to Westminster, and you can be sure that Martin McGuinness will say the same thing. What that effectively means is that because they will refuse to take the oath, they will not be allowed to cross the bar of the House to take their seats in the House of Commons, as they know full well. What I suspect it means is, and what we generally think, is they're going to set up some kind of big Sinn Féin office outside around Westminster to demonstrate what they hope people will take to be their credibility. But now, let's have a look at some of the results that have been coming in now on my results computer here. Here we have Foyle. This is John Hume's seat, safe seat for SDLP. Majority is 13,664 for John Hume in Foyle, the leader of the SDLP. Antrim North, this is Mr. Paisley's held on there. Dr. Paisley's held on his very safe seat. Antrim North, Belfast West. This is the Gerry Adams seat. Majority there for Gerry Adams of just under 8,000. The SDLP Joe Hendren down on 17,750. So, back to Westminster, and here the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, is set to announce the key members of his first cabinet, we think, this afternoon. The other posts are going to be filled over the next few days or so. So what's the Blair cabinet going to look like? We know one or two of the certain results. The Chancellor is going to be Gordon Brown for certain. He stepped aside to give Tony Blair a free run to the leadership, and with Mr. Blair, he has helped build New Labour, the new Iron Chancellor, promising to keep income tax down and in the next 2 years to spend no more than the Tories. David Blunkett will be in charge at education, the most important item on the Prime Minister's list of priorities. And the Foreign Secretary will certainly be Robin Cook, a formidable performer in the Commons. He is cautious about Europe, but a keen advocate of constitutional reform. Jack Straw will almost certainly move into the Home Office. Like his predecessor, he's likely to earn a reputation for being tough, if not hard line, on law and order. Then there is John Prescott, the party's deputy leader, who we now know, having worked tirelessly and successfully through the campaign, is almost certain to become deputy prime minister, and he will be a very big league player in a Blair cabinet. Now we can go down and see whether Jackie Ashley at Downing Street. Jackie, it's quieter there than when we last spoke, but can you tell us how the cabinet decision-making is panning out?
Yes, Jonathan, we've just been told there's a lobby briefing, the first lobby briefing of this government in the lobby room, which is a sort of basement bunker to my left over here, with Alistair Campbell, the new press secretary, and he'll be telling us a few details of the new cabinet. We're expecting 3 to 4 appointments this afternoon, we believe, which will, of course, be Gordon Brown to the Treasury, Jack Straw to the Home Office. We expect Robin Cook to the Foreign Office, and probably David Blunkett to Education. John Prescott, as you said, is going to be the deputy leader, but there is a question mark over whether he's going to have a department as well. That has been hinted at this morning.
If he does have a department as well, of course, unless it's a new department, it squeezes even more the problem of the members of the shadow cabinet, or numbers in the shadow cabinet, getting into the cabinet, doesn't it? It
does indeed. He already has this problem. Now, we're hearing that there's going to be no great bloodletting, but I would imagine that around the margins, perhaps some of the people, such as Michael Meacher, David Clark, may find themselves squeezed out, simply because he has too many people in the shadow cabinet for the places in the cabinet.
Jackie, thanks very much. And back here in the studio, Mike Brunson, given that he's got to do this operation of squeezing the shadow cabinet into the cabinet, who do you reckon? I don't want you to chance your arm and find it being cut off by one or other of them, but who do you reckon is the likely candidate?
Of course, there are some, shall we call them stratagems, some devices you can use. For example, if Claire Short continued with her ODA brief...
We're now going across to Mid-Ulster, where Martin McGuinness has just won.
I'll go lay Mr. Patterson, August, his staff. I'd like to thank Mr. Patterson and his staff for the way in which they conducted this count today. I believe, for me, this has been a very long and hard struggle, particularly so over the course of the last 6 weeks on my journeys through South Derry and East Tyrone, where I have met some of the most wonderful people in the world, courageous, intelligent people who knew this time that they had a job to do. I thank each and every one of them. Particularly, I would like to thank my family, my wife, for the support that she has given me over the course of the last 20
It's worth pointing out that he is the chief
and over the course of the
negotiator,
last,
or has
6
been
weeks.
during the so-called
It's been a
peace
particularly
process, and a
trying time
senior
for her
strategist.
and for the children.
He was
And I'd like to
also,
express
a long
my
time ago, convicted of membership of the IRA. I don't know whether he's going to say anything pertinent about whether or not he's going to take up a position in
I
Westminster
would
or
also
not.
like to thank my Director of Elections, James Glass.
No, it's all
and
the
entire
routine
elections
thank you
directorate
stuff
of
that we are
Ulster,
getting here.
all the workers who worked tirelessly,
Mike, we were
endlessly
saying before
for
that
this
this is
result.
going to really
compliment
distress
was
the
paid to them at the
established
beginning of the
political
The
parties.
problem is, of course, that the last government took the view quite firmly that there was no distinction between Sinn Féin and the IRA. Now, we shall have to wait for, as it were, the formal announcement of what they feel about that from the new government. But that is the problem. And, of course, it shows you how the really big issues come thumping down onto a new Prime Minister's desk the very day he takes office.
Very interesting. We're going to move on, and we'll follow that story through if we can hear any more from Martin McGuinness or the others. But we're going to move on now to the city. And I was saying before that CBI appears to have given something of a hands up to Labour, which would be remarkable if it had been a mere 10 years ago. And we're joined by Adair Turner, who runs the CBI, Director General of CBI. Good afternoon, Mr. Turner. It is very odd to see you giving the thumbs up to New Labour. You are absolutely confident that New Labour and the CBI can be shoulder to shoulder.
Well, I don't think it's as simple as a straight thumbs up. What we are saying is what we've actually said over the last 6 months or a year, that we've welcomed the major shifts in Labour's policy that have occurred in a pro-business direction. And as long as they stick to the commitments, most of the commitments that they've made while in opposition, many of the features of the present economy will continue under the new government, and business certainly welcomes that.
You've wobbled around a bit as an organisation on the question of the minimum wage. You sort of think, well, maybe it's a bad idea, but maybe it's not a bad idea. What is the precise position of the CBI on a minimum wage?
Well, we have always argued against a minimum wage. That has been the majority point of view. But we've also always recognised that the impact of it depends upon the level at which it's set. And now that there is a government which has a clear mandate to introduce a minimum wage, it will exist, it will be brought in, and therefore we will concentrate now on the issues about what level it should be, and also a set of very complicated, detailed issues about how do you deal with bonuses, payments, how do you deal with benefits in kind, and try to take at face value the commitments that they have made, that they will set it at a level and implement it in a way which will not harm employment.
But in that process, they're going to be listening to you, because you're going to be sitting in this low-pay commission along with the trade unions and others. Now, and you will say what you think that level should be. Now, you're not constrained, like politicians are, from saying roughly what you think your members believe would be the appropriate kind of figure. Is it somewhere around £3.50 a week, £4 a week? What kind of figure is... The unions have been very clear. They want £4.25. What's your figure?
Well, we haven't come up with a clear figure yet, and we will clearly be putting together a whole load of evidence. I think we will clearly be arguing for something, let us say, in the low threes, and not higher than that.
325-ish, is it?
Well, I don't want to be specific at the moment, because obviously the details have got to be put together.
But you believe if it went
we've always believed that if you go into the high threes and into the fours, you start to have significant unemployment effect.
That's the argument you will be saying. If you don't keep it in the low threes, then watch out, because there will be people put out of work.
Put out of work, that's right. I mean, basically, companies will make different decisions about the balance between automation and employing workers, or different decisions about the service level that they have. It will affect some competitive sectors in the traded economy, and therefore, as you push it up further, it will have an impact on employment.
Mr. Turner, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Well as the CBI, the City of London has reacted very calmly to Labour's victory. How about, we wonder, the city of Winchester? We're going back now to Robert Hall. Robert.
Well, Jonathan, Winchester's High Street crowded as ever. Businesses, large and small, looking ahead to what may happen in the coming weeks and months. Now, in a moment, we'll be talking to a couple of our own experts about the possible effects of this election result on business confidence, and particularly in the south of England, on a booming housing market. Winchester's typical of towns and cities throughout the country at the moment. The local housing market's very buoyant. Houses are selling fast. Some are selling within 48 hours of going on the market.
This one here, this is an Edwardian.
Estate agents in this sought-after cathedral city say demand is now easily outstripping supply. Prices are still rising, but buyers have been taking advantage of current low mortgage rates and trying to move into the booming property market. Here in Winchester, inner-city conversions are rejuvenating old properties, bringing them back onto the market alongside new housing developments. The question is, will an incoming Labour government put up interest rates and upset this delicate balance between property supply and demand? Well, we have our gurus here in the bank. John Wrigglesworth, what about the housing market? Are people going to sit back now and wait? Is the boom going to go on hold?
I don't think it's a boom. I think it's prospering, especially down here in the south. But I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's going to carry on as it is now, despite the prospects of interest rate rises and despite the prospects of MIRAS coming off mortgage tax relief. So I think the housing market is strong enough to carry on, so I think it's good news on the housing market. In fact, it would be the same news even if the Conservatives got in, so I think we're quite happy about that.
We talked about that boom in the south. There'll be people watching this who aren't in the south and who perhaps aren't so fortunate. Are we going to see the boom continuing to spread then?
Yes, I think so. I think once the south has caught up, because it was the area which had the biggest house price falls, I think we'll see a ripple effect towards the north. So though the north is not getting such high price rises now, I do think they will, in perhaps a few months' time, see the effects up there too.
Well, John, feel free to chip in. David Kern, let's go over to the city now and this question of confidence. Is the city going to be cheering in the aisles today?
Look, the city anticipated the Labour government. It's in the price. But the city, as John already said, the city expects higher interest rates. I mean, John talked about the boom. I think there is a boom left. It's a mini boom. It's not the 1980s, but it needs to be cool. And I think Gordon Brown has a great incentive to pounce, and to pounce quite early. That means higher interest rates. The boomlet is bound to cool off. It's still accelerating because the economy is still boiling, and it takes time for governments to do something that cools the boom. But by the end of the year, base rate, which are now 6%, will be at least, in my view, 7%. The first rise, a week, 2 weeks, I think you'll see 6.25%, 6.5% base rate. So I think the city anticipates that, but it's already in the price. So this is why today, nothing much happened.
So what's your advice to Gordon Brown then?
I think he should cool off the boom a bit, because there is an interest in making your decisions early. There is a risk. I mean, look, there is a possibility that interest rates can stay flat. But if he is wrong, he will have to push them to the roof. If he pushes them up now, he's going to have to go quarter, half, at most 1%. I think he should pass, but pass cautiously. Because today, he can blame the Tory. You know the story. I knew there's going to be a mess, but I didn't know how big the mess is until I saw the books. He saw the books, he's going to put up interest rates. There won't be a recession. Look, the economy will slow down next year, so the news isn't that marvelous. But there won't be a recession. It won't go into a nosedive. So all in all, I think Ken Clarke left him a pretty good economy, and deep down in his heart, he's pretty grateful for it.
It seems to me, in a word, a cautious welcome then, or rather more than that?
It's a cautious welcome, but I think the market is celebrating too much. For example...
We won't have time to go into all that, so let's leave it at a cautious welcome, shall we? That seems to be a good note to end on. Okay. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thanks very much. A cautious welcome from the city. The most sensational individual result of this election has to be the victory of Martin Bell in Tatton. The television correspondent took on Neil Hamilton on an anti-sleaze ticket, and he won by a mile. Paul Davis reports.
It should have been one of the safest Tory seats. The mountain of votes on the Martin Bell table told a different story.
I declare the said Martin Bell is duly elected a Member of Parliament for the Tatton constituency.
I think the people of Tatton were saying to the rest of the country and to the government and to members of Parliament that they want a cleaner, more open, more accountable democratic system in which members of Parliament can be looked up to and seen as an example, and that lately that has not always been the case.
Former Trade Minister Neil Hamilton, accused of accepting cash in return for asking questions in Parliament, looked stunned as he accepted defeat.
Although this is undoubtedly a setback, of course, for me personally, I believe also, I'm bound to say this, a setback for the Tatton constituency. This is not the end of the road. This is not the end of my political career.
Barely containing his emotion, the beaten candidate and his wife slipped quietly away. There was an altogether different reception awaiting the war correspondent turned politician as he rejoined his supporters at an early morning victory party.
I think we all started something new, or at least different, in British politics, which we hadn't dreamt was possible. But there was from the start a buzz about this thing and a belief that we could achieve the impossible, and my goodness, didn't we achieve it.
Martin Bell has said he'll stand for one term as MP for Tatton. His first problem, once tonight's celebrations are over, is finding a seat in the new Parliament. In the confrontational House, there's no place set aside for a truly independent MP. Paul Davis, ITN, Tatton. In a moment, Sue Lawley and her panel from the ITV 500 will be cross-questioning the Labour heavyweight Frank Dobson. He's waiting there, but for a moment, we'll take a break.
Take time out to discover new Viva Color, Weller's first permanent color with a color vitalizer. It uses ingredients found naturally in hair itself to vitalize your hair. The result? Lasting radiant color and brilliant shine. Put the life back into your hair. Add vitality to your life. Discover the secret with Viva Color, new from Weller.
You want good meal ideas, but can't think what to do. Iceland make it easy. The problem solved for you. Get them Iceland's family favorites. Food, you know they're all in.
Bernard Matthews Golden Drummers half price. Iceland cones have 50p off. And McVitie's American Dream Florida Orange Pie. That's half price too.
Iceland make it easy. Are you in the know about Cheerios?
I know, I like them.
What about nutrition? Nutrition. Corn, oats, rice, and wheat. 4-grain nutrition and not too sweet.
What, in one cereal?
Yeah, but only in Cheerios.
Did you know that?
Oh, I know that.
4-grain nutrition and 1 great taste. Cheerios.
Simply can't resist the tantalizing aroma of the new KFC Fillet Tower Burger.
Chicken.
Getting paint onto walls has never been easy. So Black & Decker and Dulux came up with PaintMate. Dulux put their once paint into bags, and Black & Decker put their know-how into PaintMate. The paint is pumped straight to the roller. So, getting Dulux on walls has never been easier.
Down, boy.
PaintMate from Black & Decker.
Diddle-it, looking for cheaper car insurance? Try Admiral on 0800 600 800. I know what you're thinking. Another Admiral advert. So you can save pounds on your car insurance. It's not exactly Shakespeare, but I do know Admiral saved people a lot of money.
If you want cheaper car insurance, try Admiral on 0800 600 800. That's 0800 600 800.
Tonight on Cow File, butter deception. The smooth butter-like taste of I can't believe it's not butter is misleading families into believing it really is butter. Forensics say it has less than half the saturated fat of butter, and it's their best ever taste. Yes.
This family bought it quite innocently. We just didn't realise. We were completely fooled. It's the best we've ever tasted.
I can't believe it's not butter. Can you?
Inspector, the chief called. They found some in your fridge.
Oh, my goodness.
Don't worry, Henry. Alders Blue Cross means we can easily afford to buy twice as many bargains.
Blue Cross ends Bank Holiday Monday in the Alders mid-season sale.
Welcome back with the news that the leader of the Ulster Unionists, David Trimble, is back in his seat in Upper Bann in Northern Ireland, but we'll have now a summary of where we stand. Labour has won the election, of course. The predicted majority, 179. That's what it'll probably be. 653 out of the 659 seats are now in. Labour's got 419, and the Conservatives 163, the Liberal Democrats on 45, and the Nationalist parties and Martin Bell making it 26 for the others. And here are some gains and losses. Labour has gained 146 seats. Conservatives have lost 177. Liberal Democrats have gained 27, and the rest have gained 4. And here, Paddy Ashdown says this will be a great Parliament of reform on the back of his 45 seats. That's his claim. John Major, the former Prime Minister, says it would be appropriate for the party to consider a new leader. He is bowing out. And Ken Clarke has said, I certainly intend to be a candidate in the leadership election. He is so far the least shy of the potential candidates. And Tony Blair has said, we are charged with a deep responsibility. Enough talking, now is the time to do, as he picks up the reins of government. And here are some council elections, change of control. The Liberal Democrats have lost East Sussex to no overall control. Labour have gained Cumbria from no overall control. NOC is no overall control. The Conservatives have gained Lincolnshire in the same way, and the Conservatives have gained Kent in the same way. These are the council elections, mind. And here are the seats won. Labour has won 432. The Conservatives have won 298. And the Liberal Democrats have won 158. There we are. And as promised now, Sue Lawley and her panel from the ITV 500 are there, and so is Frank Dobson. Sue.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, now, the environment was hardly a crucial issue in this election, least of all for Labour, but nevertheless, it's close to the voters' hearts. Transport, water shortages, pollution, they're issues that affect us all. Friends of the Earth have accused Labour of being political lightweights and cowards when it comes to saving the planet. So how is the new government going to counter that? With us now on the big screen, Labour's environment spokesman, Frank Dobson. And Mr Dobson, I have a question for you from Rupert Holroyd.
Good afternoon, Mr Dobson.
Good afternoon.
According to the Met Office, this summer is to experience one of the most serious droughts of the last 250 years. Yet you intend to impose a windfall tax on the privatised water companies. Shouldn't this money be channeled into plugging the leaks responsible for the loss of 40% of the water network's water?
Well, I was the person who first drew attention to the amount of water that the water companies were leaking from their own pipes, and we've been pressing them to do something about it for 2.5 years now, and they still haven't done very much, and they're investing less money in the water system now than they were in the first year of privatisation. The water industry is absolutely rolling in money. It's made £11 billion profits. It's paid out £3.5 billion in dividends, and it hasn't paid a penny in mainstream corporation tax on the water and sewage business. So it's got enough money to be eligible to pay a windfall levy, and it's also got enough money to invest in mending the leaks. They ought to get on with mending them.
That's the justification, Mr.
But surely it'll affect directly the price to the consumer of buying water.
No, we're determined that it won't. They'll have to find the money from their own resources. As I've explained, they've made these phenomenal profits and paid no tax. And it's also worth noting, of course, that the industry was literally given away to its new owners because it was sold for £5 billion, and they had debts of £5 billion written off at the same time.
Would you like to renationalise it, Mr Dobson?
No, we're not saying we would renationalise it.
But you'd like to?
Oh, well, all the opinion polls show that a large number of the public would, but there certainly isn't the money there to do it. What we're saying is that the industry needs to be properly and toughly regulated in the interests of both the customers and the environment. At the moment, it's feeble regulation. As a result, the companies and the water bosses are making a fortune, the customers are having a bad time, and the environment is certainly being damaged.
So you're going to take some tax off. Another question here from Bill Howarth.
Good afternoon, Mr Dobson.
Good afternoon.
What are your plans to deal with the creeping paralysis of road movements on the roads today, bearing in mind that traffic is due to increase double over the next 30 years?
Well, I think for a start, we've got to get away from the assumption that because somebody predicts it's going to double, we've got to provide the road space to enable it to double. Seems to me, particularly in towns, what you've got to ask yourself is, why do people use their car? And it seems to me the short answer is people use their car because they think it'll get them where they want, when they want, in roughly speaking, the style they want. And what we need is a public transport system which will do those things, get them where they want, when they want, particularly for the journey to and from work.
What about increased road tax for bigger cars?
Well, you can look at doing things through the taxation system, but I don't think that's really going to solve the problem entirely. It may help the problem, variations in the tax system.
What about increased petrol duty?
Well, that's another form of changing the taxation, and I'm saying I don't think that is the whole answer. You can put up the price of people's motoring, but it won't be any good unless you offer them an alternative.
So you're not going to put up
Can I explain? Labour councils in the northwest have come up with what has been a very good answer to this. They have built the first stage of the Manchester Metro, which runs partly from the Cheshire suburbs of Manchester. As a result of the Manchester Metro trams, the amount of traffic, commuter traffic from the Cheshire suburbs has been reduced by 20%. That's good for the environment. It gets people to work. They like travelling on that tram, and it's actually making a profit, and we need that sort of approach.
Frank Dobson, thank you very much indeed.